Since the 1950s, NASA has been working to unravel the mysteries of space, which means they've accumulated a whole lot of incredible technology. And because of a congressional mandate, they share these innovations through a technology transfer program called Spin-Off. It allows researchers to reimagine groundbreaking technology made for space so that they can apply it to bettering life on Earth.
One thing that's really, really great is the offsetting the carbon footprint. I think NASA is doing a lot of great work in terms of increasing efficiency in space flights. And as we look towards a mission to Mars, how do we keep a low carbon footprint? How do we keep things efficient? Because everything is very compact. And they're utilizing that kind of techniques and novel strategies to also apply that onto Earth so that we can hopefully create a more sustainable future.
That's Dr. Joshua Ong, an ophthalmology resident physician at the University of Michigan and a space medicine researcher. So it may not come as a surprise that one of his favorite inventions to come from NASA's spin-off program is technology that helps correct vision.
So the LiDAR, which was utilized for satellite docking, has been now utilized in LASIK for eye tracking technology because they have to be so precise. I think that that's just like a perfect example of how, kind of technologies that you wouldn't really even think about for Earth, like satellite docking, is now impacting, millions and like tens of millions of patients here on Earth, and to have them see much better without glasses.
Ong has been featured in Forbes' 30 Under 30 list for his work with astronaut health.
I was interested in medicine, and I just really enjoyed utilizing pathophysiology and understanding the human body to really help people and serve people, and to hopefully, in some ways, if they're sick or have some diseases, to really understand that and to really use that knowledge to better their lives. And at the same time, while I was exploring that in undergrad and also eventually going to medical school, I was really interested in space medicine.
During his undergrad, he helped investigate what causes muscle atrophy in astronauts. But as he became more passionate about ophthalmology, Ong switched his focus in space medicine to a specific condition that causes big problems for astronauts' eyes. It's called Spaceflight-Associated Neuroocular Syndrome, or SANS for short. It causes a wide range of symptoms including vision problems, swelling of the optic nerve, and flattening of the eye itself.
Spaceflight-Associated Neuroocular Syndrome, or SANS, is one of the largest physiological barriers to space flights. The things that we see in astronauts are the swelling of the optic nerve, which is the connection between the eye and the brain.
Patients on Earth who have a swollen optic nerve can usually blame a tumor or elevated pressure within the skull. If left untreated, it can lead to long-term vision loss.
It's something that's really concerning. Luckily, astronauts have not had permanent vision loss, but definitely that specific finding, when it was first described back in 2011, was very, very concerning. And it's become a really large focus of NASA.
Ong says that so far, the swelling of the optic nerve appears to go back down to normal once the astronauts are back on Earth. However, that doesn't mean these men and women are totally in the clear.
There are certain things, such as the globe being a little bit more compressed, that has been shown to essentially persist for many years after coming down. That doesn't necessarily mean that their vision is not correctable to 20/20, but that just is something that we found that's very interesting. In addition, some astronauts that developed these symptoms going into space and then they come back down and some of their symptoms resolve, they go up for a second mission. And we actually see that their symptoms are actually more severe the next time that they go. So the thought is that there's some type of permanent or semi-permanent alteration that occurs in the globe itself that makes them more susceptible to injury if they go up a second time.
Since it seems to be a compounding condition, the pressure is on for researchers like Ong to figure out how to protect the astronauts. And though solving this SANS problem is categorized as one of the highest health priorities for future missions, the cause of the condition is not well understood. One main issue is that it needs to be studied during missions.
So there's no real kind of terrestrial analog. So we can't really study it that well here on Earth. So that limits us. But this constellation of findings that we see in these astronauts is something that we don't necessarily see here terrestrially. The thought is that there is a high intracranial pressure.
The theory is that the increased pressure may be caused by the weightless environment. On Earth, the fluid in our bodies gets pulled down toward our feet as we walk upright all day. Then, when we sleep, the fluid becomes more evenly distributed and flows up to our head. But when astronauts are in space, they're constantly in that state, and the fluid never goes back down to their feet.
So when we have a large headward shift of fluid, and it just stays there for a very long time, the thought is that it can lead to venous congestion and also eventually increased intracranial pressure. We haven't like fully proven that yet. This is a lot of theoretical like theory based off of like biophysics. And obviously, it's very difficult to kind of prove that. We're not going to be poking kind of needles into people's like spines to like know their pressure of their intracranial pressure, or at least not yet. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do. We're trying to develop technologies that are non-invasive for astronauts to kind of understand a little bit more. Because if we understand the actual underlying etiology, then we can hopefully solve it.
Ong says researchers are currently focused on correcting the fluid shift astronauts experience through a technique called lower body negative pressure.
So putting basically astronauts into a suit or a kind of large kind of canister like that goes up to your torso and essentially providing negative pressure to bring the fluid down, or using venous thigh cuffs, basically just putting these large cuffs on your thighs to reduce that pressure going up.
Ong says that Russia's space program is already using similar technology to reduce the risk of heart conditions, but the current goal is to integrate the equipment into the spacesuit itself.
The ones that the Russians used in spaceflight is basically kind of attached to just like the spacecraft itself. And so it's not really mobile. So you just have to kind of just sit there. But if we're able to provide lower body negative pressure in your spacesuit, then that allows for a lot more mobility, a lot more efficiency. So that's currently where we're at. That hasn't, I don't believe that has been deployed yet, but UC San Diego researchers are working on, they're putting out some really great work on kind of their first and second, third iterations of this technology.
However, this progress is still only based on the belief that the intracranial pressure is the issue. Join us next week as Ong reveals more theories, as well as the steps researchers are taking to combat this dangerous condition, and how their findings are helping people on Earth. You can find more information about Dr. Joshua Ong and all of our guests on our website, radiohealthjournal.org. For more behind the scenes, follow Radio Health Journal on Facebook, Instagram, and X. Our writer-producer is Kristen Farah. Our production manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Greg Johnson.